Want a quick 10-minute wrap-up of the week's compliance news? Well, this is the podcast for you, 10 for 10, where Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, wraps up 10 top compliance stories which occurred over the past week. If you don't know, Tom has a daily news podcast, appropriately called the Daily Compliance News, and 10 for 10 wraps up the week. So get up on a Saturday morning, have a great cup of coffee, and check out 10 for 10, the podcast which gives you the week's top compliance news. Are you interested in upping your game in compliance through the use of AI and machine learning technology? Well, check out my latest book, Upping Your Game, How Compliance and Risk Management Move to 2030 and Beyond. You can check it out in the show notes. I've got a link to the purchase at Amazon.com. Upping Your Game. 10 top compliance stories for the week ending May 24, 2025. New York Times, which reports that while public companies are obligated to tell investors how tariffs could affect corporate financial results, they're afraid to do so because they don't want to risk the ire of Donald Trump. So are they engaging in illegal acts, or are they just simply walking a tightrope? Say the wrong word, it might tick off the president. Heaven forbid you would do that. But as companies start to feel the impact, they're going to have to make a decision. Are they going to tell people what the costs are? Are they going to move the price along to customers by raising prices? Are they going to eat it? Are they going to lay off workers? What are they going to do? President Trump apparently doesn't want anyone to know what the cost of tariffs are. You might not understand that, but it would certainly be consistent with his lack of transparency. Next up, in a really interesting article from the Wall Street Journal, it reports that Boeing's internal safety plan is, get this, have a hotline. Where did they come up with that? It's just brilliant. They're going to have a hotline, and they're going to have a third party investigate claims not an employee who speaks up's manager. That's it. Yes, you heard it here first. Cutting edge compliance by Boeing. You wonder why they've been in trouble for so long? Well, I think if millions of dollars later, this is the compliance upgrade they've come up with. As Todd Haas said in a LinkedIn post today, 8 years since the first 737 MAX crash, and this is what they come up with? Yep, this is apparently it. They're going to have a hotline where people can report safety problems. Good luck, Boeing. Of course, the DOJ doesn't see any need to prosecute them. I wonder how much money Boeing donated. Next up, from the FT, the Financial Times, UK National Crime Agency has obtained freezing orders on 2 London properties owned by the son of an ally of the ousted Bangladeshi leader, Sheikha Hasina, following allegations that her regime embezzled funds. The properties are owned by Ahmed Shayan Fazlur Rashman, the son of Salman F. Rahman, a Bangladeshi businessman who acted as an investment advisor to the former PM. So, more corruption coming out of Bangladesh. And our final story comes to us from Reuters, which reports that EY failed to spot a major fraud by the main shareholders of the UAE hospital operator NMC and what lawyers for the firm's administrator called disgraceful auditing and negligence at best. EY said, it wasn't us. It was the bad fraudsters who hid it from us. We just didn't find it. Well, $3 billion in fraud-related losses later, EY is in court trying to not only salvage their reputation, but avoid having to pay damages based upon, once again, not picking up a massive fraud because they didn't look at documents or ask questions. Next up from the Financial Times, Qatar says that its gift of a $400 million plane to Donald Trump was not a bribe, but a gift. So when is a bribe, and when is a bribe a gift, and when is a gift a bribe? All very confusing. But The Qataris seem to have it straight in their minds, wondering what the U.S. courts would say about this when the DOJ claims it's just a gift. Next, NVIDIA says U.S. chip controls of China have backfired. Jensen Huang, the chip maker's top executive, says the attempt to cut off the flow of advanced AI chips has spurred the Chinese to accelerate their own development. Was that an unintended consequence, or is the Trump administration so stupid it didn't understand? That's exactly what China has done. All the sanctions against Russia, Russia's created workarounds for them all. So do sanctions work? Well, they're a great PR stunt, and they certainly can put pressure on. But if a country can respond thoughtfully or in a business way, they may not be as powerful as they thought. Next up, in a wonderful piece from Matt Levine over at Bloomberg, he details the Trump and dump. What's the Trump and dump? Well, it's where you announce that holders of your Bitcoin or meme coin, Trump coin, who have the most will get a free dinner with Trump. And you give the dates and you open the bidding. And amazingly enough, people raced to buy Trump coins and the value went up. And then the cutoff date came and they all dumped it. So the Trump and dump, you got to love it. Next up from Microsoft, it is making Office Teams offer in an attempt to avert a massive EU antitrust fine. And what I mean by this is they are going to allow Teams to be debundled from Office 365 and reduce the price. Now, this would seem like a logical move, but previously, if you wanted Teams debundled, you actually had to pay more. Talk about an anti-competitive measure. But Microsoft understands it's in deep trouble, as well as other tech companies in the EU with their anti-competitive stances that they've taken in the United States and slid by on. If this is accepted by the EU, it would end a long-running case triggered by the 2020 complaint from the Salesforce-owned Slack, which could result in a massive fine against Microsoft. It would allow Europeans to buy Office 365 and Microsoft 365 suites without Teams for less than their corresponding prices with Teams. Next up, in a sad article from Yahoo News, it reports that a jury on Monday of this week convicted retired four-star U.S. Admiral Robert Burke, who had served as the Navy's second highest-ranking officer, on corruption charges for steering contracts to a company in exchange for a lucrative job. He ordered his staff to award a $355,000 contract to a company, then began working there at a $500,000 a year job after his retirement from the Navy. So more trouble for the U.S. Navy. I'm sure my father's spinning in his grave hearing about corruption at the very highest levels of the U.S. Navy. It was an institution he dearly loved. Next up, China accuses U.S. of undermining trade talks with warning against Huawei chips. And what are those warnings? Well, the U.S. government has said that you cannot use Huawei chips literally anywhere in the world. And if you do, that's a U.S. export violation. Now, perhaps that's viable for U.S. companies and a strategy you want to use. But guess what? If you're not subject to U.S. jurisdiction, the U.S. can't magically say, you violated U.S. export control laws. So the Trump administration really, if you listen to these idiots when they go to Capitol Hill, they don't understand the basic rules of jurisdiction. They certainly don't understand the basic rules of the Constitution, and they don't understand the basic rules of law. I wonder if they can't ever win at courts. Oh, well, look, have a happy and safe Memorial Day weekend. We'll be back. This is Tom Fox again. 10 for 10 is a special production of the Compliance Podcast Network. I'd also urge you to check out the Daily Compliance News, which posts every week from Monday to Friday, where I give 4 curated stories of bribery, corruption, and compliance events that will allow you to help you start your day as well. So check out the Daily Compliance News and subscribe or rate and review to both 10 for 10 and the Daily Compliance News. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of 10 for 10. I hope you'll check out the newest podcast in the Compliance Podcast Network, the Compliance Tip of the Day. In Compliance Tip of the Day, I give a 5 to 8 minute summary of one tip that you can integrate into your compliance program or put together for greater compliance program efficiency. Finally, if you're a Sherlock Holmes fan, I am preparing a new season of Adventures in Compliance where I go through the 4 novels of Sherlock Holmes. Hear it on the Compliance Podcast Network.